All right. I want to show you guys a game design system that I've been working on for a while. This is a combat system for use in an RPG, and I think that it's one of the best implementations of an idle combat system, where you can basically set your character up and then send them on their way, and they're going to be using abilities very intelligently. And the difference between this and a lot of traditional idle combat systems is that oftentimes programmers try to make this more complex than it needs to be by giving the player access to a bunch of things like conditionals. If this, then do this. If this, then do this. And those things make a lot of sense to us as programmers, but to the casual user, they don't really want to have to go through the steps of thinking through all the logical implications of every different if conditional and this and that. And so the way that I designed this combat system is basically that all you have to do is arrange your abilities in a specific order, and that's it. And the game system takes care of the rest. So let's explain how it works. So what happens is the player has access to 7 orb slots during combat, and these are the 7 orbs. And what happens is, as they use abilities, they're either going to use generator abilities, which will generate a new orb, or they're going to use consumer abilities that will consume an orb that they had previously generated. So for example, if I used an ability like thwack, this would generate 1 melee orb. So if I use thwack, then one of my orbs becomes full, and now it's a melee orb. Then if I used an ability like power slash, this subtracts a melee orb, and you can see here that it does 150% damage instead of 100% damage. So it's much stronger to use this one. So if I use power slash, then it would remove the orb and deal 150% damage. So that consumes my melee orb. So basically what happens is you line up your hotbar in the order that you want skills to be prioritized. And what the game does is it looks at each skill left to right, and it determines if it can use that skill, if it has enough orbs or not. If it can't use that skill, then it moves on to the next skill and tries to use that. So basically, if I have thwack over here, then the game engine is going to look on my first turn, it's going to say, okay, I can use thwack because it doesn't have any requirements. So I'll fill up a melee orb. And then on my second turn, it's going to look and it's going to say, okay, I can use thwack, fill up another orb. Third turn, looks at thwack, I can use it still, fills up another orb. And that would keep on going. So thwack is a terrible skill to have as your first one in the lineup. But if you invert these, now before we do that, the total amount of damage that we just did was 300% damage over 3 turns. If you invert these, so power slash is first, and then we clear our orbs, now we've got 0 orbs filled. So it looks at power slash, it knows that it needs 1 melee orb to use that skill. We don't have any, so it passes on to the next skill. This is on the first turn, so it checks thwack. We can use thwack, so it gives us a melee orb. We deal 100% damage. And now on the next turn, it looks again at power slash, says, oh, this requires 1 melee orb. Well, then I'll use it because I have enough melee orbs to do that. Now on the second turn, we've done 150% damage. Now on the third turn, again, we look at power slash, can't use it. Let's move on to thwack. Refills our orb. Now we've done another 100% damage. That totals up to 350% total damage over those 3 turns. So you can see already that this build is better than the previous build because we're chaining our melee orbs together. What if we want to make it a little bit more interesting? So you notice here that there's several different colors. This full system is actually designed for seven different colors of skills, but I've only got casino tokens for a couple of colors, so we're just dumbing it down to just use 3 different colors. So in this case, what if we introduce another skill? This one's called dash. This one gives us 1 nature orb, but subtracts 1 melee orb. So this changes the dynamic a little bit more. So let's put this in here. And let's run the simulation again. So this time we check, can we use dash? Nope, we don't have enough melees. Can we use power slash? Nope, we don't have enough melees. Can we use thwack? Yep. So a generated melee, deal 100% damage. Next turn, can we use dash? In fact, we can because we do have one melee. So we take off the one melee, and then we add one nature orb. So what dash is actually doing, it's converting your melee into nature orbs. Then on the third turn, we're going to look again. Can we use dash? Nope, we don't have enough melees. Can we use power slash? Nope. And in fact, we'll never be able to use power slash because dash will always be chewing through our melee orbs before power slash gets a hold of them. So we could just go ahead and take power slash out. So then on that third turn, we're back to using thwack to generate a melee orb. And then on our fourth turn, we're going to use dash again, subtract that melee orb, replace it with a nature orb. So this technique is interesting because now we're building up a reserve of nature orbs. So what if we were able to throw some additional abilities into the mix? How about chain lightning? For a cost of 2 nature orbs, this will do 200% damage. So we slide these over, put chain lightning in front. Now with this board, on our next turn, we check chain lightning. In fact, we can use it because it costs 2 nature orbs. So we use both of them, we do a ton of damage, 200% right there, and we're back to clear. So the same exact pattern would repeat. Turn 1, we use thwack, generate a melee. Turn 2, we use dash, we subtract a melee, replace it with a nature. Turn 3, back to using thwack again. Turn 4, we're using dash, converting that to a nature. And then turn 5, back to using chain lightning. So this is a 5-turn combo, does a ton of damage. Let's see, how much did it do? 200, 125 times 2, that's 450. Thwack times 2, that's 650. 650 damage across 5 turns, that's pretty good compared to our original baseline, which was basically 100% per turn. So that 5-turn combo did 650% damage, whereas this basic combo is 500. So that's interesting. But wait, we can make it even more crazy. Let's take a look at what else we could do. Let's say instead of chain lightning, let's take that out. Got this skill. This is called vitriolic burn. This skill it generates a fire orb for you and consumes 2 nature orbs. Does 160% damage and applies 3 stacks of poison. So this is where it starts to get interesting because now we're applying effects, and theoretically we could have other abilities that work off of the poison and things like that, and you can get some really creative combos going. But what this now does is our nature orbs that were already coming from our melee orbs, now those are going into vitriolic burn, and those are going to be generating fire orbs. So we'll lay that down there, slide these out. And of course we're going to need something to use those fire orbs on. So we'll grab Incinerate. This one's 210% damage, applies 3 stacks of Ignite, uses 3 fire orbs. It's pretty beefy. So with this pattern, kind of look like this. Turn 1, look down the line, using thwack. Turn 2, going to use dash, place that melee with the nature. Turn 3, back to using thwack. And of course turn 4, back to dash, placing that melee with the nature. Turn 5, we're on to vitriolic burn. Going to consume those 2 natures and drop a fire on the heap. So turn 6, we're back to thwack. And you might be able to calculate this all out in your head, but we're going to do it here on paper and tokens just for the hell of it. Turn 7, is it now? Use that dash, convert a melee to a nature again. Turn 8, back to thwack. Turn 9, dash again. Turn 10, back to vitriolic burn. Another stack of red. And basically, you can see it's a 5-turn combo to get your vitriolic burn to go off. And you need 3 fire orbs to activate incinerate. So you're going to have 3 activations of vitriolic burn. That means it's 15 turns, and you get your incinerate to go off. So we could go through that. We'll do it real quick. Thwack, dash, thwack, dash, vitriolic burn, and now we're on to incinerate. Consumes all our orbs, does a bunch of damage. In the process of all this, we applied 9 stacks of poison, 3 stacks of ignite, did a boatload of damage that I can't be bothered to calculate. And yeah, we've got a pretty good damage over time build with these ignites and these poisons going off. So there's a lot of flexibility here. We could introduce lava wave. Instead of going damage over time, we could just go for big hits. And this is interesting too, because what happens here, if we swap this out, and we won't go through the whole process, but let's say that vitriolic burn has gone off several times, 4 times, and we're about to use lava wave for the very first time. That costs 4 fire. It generates +2 nature. So we take these off. What happens is the following turn, we've got 2 nature. So instead of going all the way back to thwack, we're back to vitriolic burn. So what that does is it kind of reshuffles the order of how things go. Once you get your lava wave to go off, well, you got a free fire orb basically now from your vitriolic burn. And the combo was you did vitriolic burn, got enough for lava wave, used lava wave, then right after that got to use vitriolic burn again. So you're able to do all of these big hits right in a row for a big old combo right there around, I don't know, that would be around turn 21 or something like that. Now remember, I said that all of this was in an idle game. 21 turns is a long time. Like if you were playing a JRPG, you would not want to fight that last 21 turns. I mean, that would be like a boss fight actually. And even for JRPGs, that could be a long boss fight if you got 4 party members. But in an idle game, you could have the turns going by really fast. I mean, each turn could be a second or 2 seconds or 3 seconds or something like that. And you could just be seeing these orbs popping in and damage going off. And it'd just be all happening very quickly. So even though it sounds like a ton of turns are passing, it really could happen very quickly. You know, 20 turns could be 20 seconds. So this gives basically the whole system a ton of flexibility. You can organize your bar, and if you do it out of order, then it's going to become readily apparent when you watch it fight. You're going to be like, well, oh gosh, it's like my lava wave is never going off or something like that. You know, depending on the arrangement that you put your skills, you can have very different effects. And with things like dash, which are converting one orb type into another orb type, these give you a lot of flexibility where you could introduce additional orb types into the mix and just have some skills that are going off every now and then. So let's do an example of that. So here we got recovery. Now, this is a little weaker than thwack. It heals you for 75%, but the benefit is that it also generates a spirit orb in addition to a melee orb. So if we introduce this, what's going to happen is that over time, we're going to be building up. Actually, I'm going to take this one off, and we'll bring incinerate back. And we might need just a little bit more space here, so I'm just going to line these up a little differently. Grab this haunting malediction. We'll go over that in a minute, but that uses spirit orbs. So what happens is that on turn 1, you go all the way down to recovery, and this time now you're generating some spirit orbs as well. So then turn 2, we go to dash. That converts a melee into a nature, and we've done this whole process before. Next turn, we're going to generate a melee and a spirit again with recovery. Following turn, we're going back to dash, converting that to a spirit orb, or excuse me, a nature orb. Following turn, more recovery. Now the next turn, we're not going to go dash because now we've got enough spirit orbs to use Haunting Malediction. We've got 3 spirit orbs here. So real quick, we've already got a big combo where we're doing 250% damage and applying 10 stacks of poison. So get rid of all of these, deal a ton of damage, get our poison train going. Now we've got all these orbs left over. Then on the following turn, not back to dash, we're going down to vitriolic burn because we've got our nature orbs in place. So -2 nature, add 1 fire. Now we're starting to charge up our incinerate combo. So you can see the flexibility that a system like this has, especially as you're chaining colors together. And when you get into some more complex skills, it definitely becomes really interesting, the kind of buffs and debuffs that you can execute and the strategies and tactics that you can employ in combat. So that's a little overview of the orb system. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And yeah, until next time, take it easy, guys.